Welcome aboard the Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon podcast, where we're dedicated to helping first-time and experienced boat buyers find the right boat at the best price so they have years and years of boating fun, because life truly is better on a boat. Today's podcast is sponsored by the Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon Toolkit, packed with inspection checklists, questions to ask private sellers and dealers, ownership calculators, how to sea trial a boat the right way, and much more. And it's all yours free at boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/toolkit. And the magic money saving method, the insider's way to getting the best deal on your new or used boat. Check out the video at boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/save. Now, let's hop aboard and have some fun. Today we've got a great episode for you. I actually interview a boat buyer named Art. He's in Northwest Louisiana, and he is searching for his first boat. So I go through the questions with him. He asks me all the questions that are on his mind. We kind of talk about different scenarios and what's good, what some things he should think about. I ask him some questions that he hadn't thought about before, and I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. It's the first one we've done like this. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast where you can ask me any of your boat buying questions, just go to boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/guest. Fill out the simple form, and we'll be in touch from there. Enjoy this episode.
Okay. Well, all right. Let me just begin by telling you a little bit about my background and where I'm from, if you got time.
Absolutely.
I've been around boats. I've owned boats most of my life. I'm 58 years old now. My kids are grown. They're all out of the house and stuff. And I'm not one for the motorhome style. You know, I'm not going to get on in a motorhome and travel across the country. It just, you know, it's not what I'm about. You know, I love the water, but also I do like mobile home or motor homes.
Okay.
So I was trying to figure out how can I have both, you know, be on the water and still have the luxury of being in of a motor home. Right now I own a 19-foot little study cabin, which I love, but I want to step up, and I'm not sure how to go about doing it because I'm not wealthy by all means. I've got really good credit, but I don't know which direction to go, what I could afford, what would be the best option, and that's the information that I needed. To go from a 19-foot study cabin, tolerable boat, and step up to something from a 28-6 or 26-foot to maybe a 30-foot, somewhere in that range, that I'd probably have to moor. Wouldn't be able to trailer it. So my first question is, do dealers have boats in inventory that have been sitting in inventory for 2 or 3 years that would be at a reduced price without, really purchasing a used boat?
At times, and it's 2 or 3 years. 2 years is a likelihood. 3 years nowadays, not as common. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but it's going to be a needle in a haystack.
Okay.
And this isn't always the case, but a lot of times, if they have something like that, it's because there's something weird about the boat. I've got a dealer here that I've talked to a few times, I'm in the Carolinas, and they've got a brand new 2007 that's a 24 or 26 foot cruiser that's on a trailer, but it's an Australian brand that they picked up in 06 and 07. Well, and then everything went south in the boat market, and they just have never been able to sell it because it's a brand nobody knows. I don't know. I've been around boats forever and have been in the industry. I don't know a single thing about if it's a premium or a cheap one. But every now and again, but it's going to be a needle in a haystack. But something that's a year or two old, you can certainly find that. You can certainly find that in the marketplace.
I got to ask the question before we move on.
Yeah.
That boat that you were just referring to, is the steering wheel on the left-hand side?
I didn't even get up in it. It had the canvas on it. It had the canvas on it, and I don't think so. I think it's on the same side as we have.
Okay,
but that's a good question. That makes me want to drive by that dealership and ask them. Yeah, so every now and again you can find that, but it's and not saying that there's anything wrong with that particular boat or one that another dealer may have, but it's just it's odd because most dealers, it starts to get expensive. That boat starts depreciating. They have to pay interest payments on it, and they make their money when they turn their boats over 2-3 times a year. So they're oftentimes highly motivated to get rid of it because that then allows them to buy the 2017 models that are coming out right now.
Right. Okay. What kind of say if I can, and like I say, I'm looking for something probably a couple years old that's been sitting in inventory. What kind of price deduction percentage wise could I expect to possibly get if I did say it's 2016 right now, but if I could find something 2014 model or
if it's
2015.
If it's brand new and it still has warranty, I would let me do some quick math. I know kind of real numbers on real examples, so let me do. All right, so let's say it's a $70,000 boat that would sell brand new. I'm going to say 5 to 10% additional. And when I say that, I mean off of what they would say. So you've got MSRP, right? And then you've got what they would really sell it for.
Right.
And then you've got 5 to 10% off of that number that they would really sell it for. It's hard to give a percentage off MSRP because that's sort of a made up number that nobody really, each dealer makes it up different, and each manufacturer kind of gives them different numbers to start from, so it's really irrelevant. But I would say 5 to 10% off of what they would have sold it for, at the boat show the year it was new, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, and that's kind of the question I had. So you answered my question. Okay. Since you are not a salesman, I'm probably asking more questions I wouldn't have asked you.
The more questions you ask, because it's going to be like that 20th question that you asked me, that's going to be the one that is on everybody else's mind, but they just never wanted to ask it of a salesperson. So, yeah, fire away. I've got 45 minutes for you.
Okay, so I'm a motivated buyer, so to speak. I've been searching. I've been a year now, just looking and all that. How flexible are boat dealers when it comes to price? The off the sticker price. Can you negotiate with them, or are they pretty much cut and dry? That's the sticker price, and that's what you're going to pay for it, and that's it.
Most dealers are highly negotiable. And it this time of year even more so, because like I said, 2017s are coming in, and sometimes it depends on the dealer. Some dealers do hey, we've got the MSRP and we mark it down up front, and that's pretty close to what we're going to sell it for, maybe $100, a couple $100 here or there, but not thousands. Right. Other dealers say, okay, we're going to take the MSRP and we're going to show a price pretty close to that, so that we have and the higher up in price you go, the more common it is to have more negotiation, because in the dealer's mind, what they think is, hey, I've got to have room that if somebody brings me a trade in, that I need to be able to give them more for the trade and then just charge more for the newer boat, make them feel good about their trade, and still make my money. So oftentimes the higher up you go, the more negotiation room there is. Here's the best question, I think, when you get to that point. First, Art, find the right boat. Make sure it's the boat that you're going to be, think about how you're going to use it as an RV on the water, and are you going to spend 2 days on it, or are you going to spend a week at a time on it? And that will kind of help you guide the, sitting in a cabin of a 26-footer for the weekend, doable. Staying in a 26-footer with, 4 people for the week you're going to kill each other. So just think about how you'll actually use it. Find the boat first, but then when you find it and you find somebody that's reputable and everything seems right, ask this question. Hey, the boat's $72,000. Is that the best you can do? And what you do is you kind of put the pressure. You're not committing to buying the boat. You're just asking, hey, is that the best you can do? Like, just conversation. And 9 out of 10 salespeople are going to, like, oh, shoot, especially now, this time of the year, I really want to sell a boat now. I haven't talked to anybody for a week or so. And they're going to start negotiating right away. They give you the next price and, talk a little bit more. Is that the best you can do? And you kind of just keep asking that question until they're like, yeah, Art, this is it. You want it or not? And when you get them to that point, you've negotiated about as much as you're going to negotiate. Yeah. And then also remember, when it comes to negotiating, that depending on who you buy it from and what they offer, a lot of times they're more willing to give merchandise, gear, service, because they can charge retail for that, but it really only costs them wholesale. So sometimes,
that was my next question.
Yeah, sometimes they're like, I can't give you $1,000 off, but I can give you $2,000 worth of storage in our wet slip in our marina if they have a marina, because the slip's empty, it's not costing us anything, but you get a true $2,000 value. So think about what you would want that maybe is going to be real cheap to them, but cost you cash money. Does that make sense?
Okay. No, it does. That was my next question. Okay. When you get to the bottom line for the sticker price on the boat, is that what lateral movement do you have as far as getting merchandise and get your whatever you need to outfit the boat with. So that they're usually pretty receptive to that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it depends. Right. And the other thing I want to mention is the negotiation tactics are one side of things. For me, when I sold, I didn't negotiate a whole lot because I just kind of gave what a fair price was, and the better service that dealer is going to provide as time goes on for warranty work or for, hey, I've got this little issue. You've had boats, so I've got this little issue that needs to be fixed, and I can't do it myself. Can I bring it in? The more they liked you during the buying part of the phase, the easier it is for them to say, you know what, I'm going to sneak you ahead of somebody else. So just, play that to whichever is most valuable to you. Is saving an extra $200 worth having the dealer say, here's your boat, but please don't ever come back.
Yeah,
so,
I don't ever
play it the right way. Yeah, play it the right way, because you know how valuable the relationship is of somebody you can trust when you need service.
Okay. All right. Next question. Finance.
Yep.
I was on boat.com and I was talking about, getting financing, and they said, if you go through the dealer, a lot of times they can get you a lot of, financing because they're dealing with people, finance corporations that deal with, marine people and boats and all that.
Yep.
Is that your recommendation? Should I, in fact, look for them to do the financing for me, or should I go and get my own independent finance?
I would look at both, but more than likely you're going to find that the dealer has a better program for you, because if they're a good dealer, I kind of got to qualify some of this, but if they're a good dealer, they have a relationship with a marine lender that they send, let's say they sell 100 boats a year, so they send them 50 to 75 customers a year, and for that, they get a little bit of preferential treatment on pricing, so a better rate for you, but also a marine lender is going to have a longer term, which equates to a lower payment if that's important to you. Now, if the payment's not really a concern and you just care about the lowest rate, then I would go to a local credit union or a local bank, because they're probably going to have a lower rate, but they'll probably only go 5 years, whereas a marine lender will go 15 to 20, and they'll have a comparable rate, maybe a little bit higher. So look at both and then choose whichever is a best fit for your situation.
Okay. I wouldn't ask this question if you were a salesman, but you aren't.
hopefully you can see. I'm just kind of throwing it out there.
I appreciate that. I mean, this is just what I was looking for, someone I could talk to. Not from a salesman standpoint, because your salesman, he's trying to sell the product or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's great that I'm able to talk to you. So I want to keep my payment anywhere from $700 to $800 a month for the boat itself. And is that doable and still acquire something like that 28-foot cruiser?
I don't know. Hang on. Let me pop up a calculator, and I can calculate backwards to what that will be. I'm going to say very easily, but let me get a calculator up here. Actually, I'm going to put you on speaker and pull it up on my phone.
Okay.
I've got one here. Loan calculator. And I'm going to use 5%. I don't know where rates are right now, but I think they're lower than that. But 5 should be a decent starting place right now. All right, so $100,000 loan at 15 years, which with good credit, they'll go 10% down, 15 years pretty consistently. At 5% gets you $790 a month. So yeah, I think you'll be and $80,000 to $100,000 on that size boat gets you a pretty a higher quality level if you want to do that. A premium manufacturer. There's going to be some more value manufacturers that you could probably get into the 30, even maybe a little bit higher into the 30s. I would say up to I don't want to overspeak here, but 32 to 34 maybe. So and you'll be able to tell. You'll know the brands that are on the less expensive by if you see one.
When you're saying 32, 34, what are we referring to?
Size of the boat.
Oh, okay.
So it's a 32-foot, 34-foot cruiser.
Oh, okay. I was thinking price.
No. And again, when I said think about what you're going to do on the boat, how you're going to use it as an RV, if it's a couple days overnight or if it's a week overnight and you're going to truly vacation on it, spend some significant time down in the cabin with multiple people, and you'll get a sense for how comfortable it will be. So maybe moving up in the size makes sense. Maybe the 26-footer is fine. I had a lot of clients that had 26-footer, and I sold Sea Ray, 26-foot Sea Rays that they overnighted with 2 kids. But they would just go for Saturday night, Sunday night.
Yeah.
They were good. Right. But I think your price range is going to be fine with good credit with 10% down, and especially if you negotiate a little bit. Now on a side note, if you start to look for boats that are 3 new but 2 or 3 years old, you got to pay attention to the financing, because some of the lenders will look at that and say, hey, you know what? I know this is brand new and it's never been titled, but we've got to treat it on the financing side as a used boat. So now they're probably going to want a little bit more money down. Not necessarily, but just know that may come up if you do find something that's 3 years older or older, and it's based on when the dealer takes delivery of it, how long they've owned it. Okay. In most cases, so it could be a 2-year-old boat, could be a 3-year-old boat where something like that comes up. But just don't be caught off guard by that if you're stretching your 10%.
Okay. Now let me ask you this. Let's talk used boats. Okay. What's your opinion on purchasing? I've always been told there's some things you don't buy used.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm a believer in that to a certain extent. But also, I know, with boats like this, it's not some ski boat that some guy without,
right. It's probably a 50, 60-year-old family that owned it.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right. So here's my thing different on that.
Here's my personal opinion. Is if you're looking for the most value, go pre-owned. Now, if you don't mind if somebody else has pooped in the head If you don't mind if somebody, there's going to be a scratch on it, there's going to be a nick somewhere, there's going to be something wrong with it. But you could easily get a much larger, a much nicer, or the same size for a lot less money if you get something that's 3, 4, 5 years old. Now, you've got to be careful that you don't buy somebody else's headache. So you've got to be smart about what you do. But here's what you do: is you go through the boat and you inspect it. You don't just look and say, "Oh, I like the layout. The price is good. Let's do it." You say, "Okay, let me go through every compartment, every hatch." And you can't hide. You've owned boats enough, so you cannot hide if you neglect a boat. If you neglect a boat, it's going to be, when you start looking in compartments and opening up hatches and, checking, flipping switches and see what comes on and what doesn't, you can pretty easily tell whether they took care of it or not. The size boat you're looking at, it may be in the water. Never, ever buy a boat like that without pulling it out of the water. Even if you have to spend $100 to do it, it could make you from making a $100,000 mistake. So pull it, inspect it, and then get a surveyor, which is going to be somewhat expensive. They usually charge by the foot, so $500 to $700 to have a surveyor look at it, and call another dealer and ask 2 or 3 dealers in your area. Hey, who's a great surveyor? Not the cheapest, but who's the best surveyor that you know? If you were going to buy a boat, who would you get? And then you hear, like, up in this area, his name escaped me, but it was what the heck is his name? Anyway, it was the same guy. I'd be like, this is it. And if you called any dealer, he'd done it. He did a good job. He wasn't the cheapest, but he was the best. And then also, go ahead.
When you say surveyor, I'm assuming you're talking about somebody that will actually go through the boat, inspect the boat, and all that.
Yeah. A surveyor will do everything but the engine. They'll go through every system. They'll put the boat on the water and they'll run it. They'll tap the hull and make sure there's no water anywhere. They'll write up a 20-page document. About 2 of the pages are highly valuable. And the best thing that you can do is say, man, I didn't need to do that. The boat's in perfect shape, but you've got that peace of mind. You get, hey, this boat has a major issue, and then you walk away and it costs you $500, $700, but it didn't cost you $50,000.
Right.
And then also, depending on if you're mechanically inclined, have the compression pulled on the engine. It cost $100 just to make sure the engines are in good, solid running order, and maybe even have them go through, check all the fluids, find out, you can test the oil, you can check the gear lube if it's a stern drive, and just make sure that everything's good. That may be up to $250, but for $1,000, you can have a level of confidence that you just, unless you're highly mechanically inclined, that you wouldn't have otherwise. And I think for the savings of, say $20,000 from a new boat to a used that's in virtually the similar condition, I think if you're going to go used, those are 2 things you have to do. And then run the boat as well. Run the boat yourself and make sure that it handles the way you're comfortable.
Handles well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, back to financing now on a used boat, pre-owned boat. Finance companies, what kind of financing can I expect to get? I've got great credit. My credit's around 800.
Okay, so
don't worry about credit.
Credit-wise, you're going to have, it's going to be very similar. The rate will be a touch higher. So maybe 0.5% to a 1% higher. The term, as long as it's less than, I think it's 10 years old still. So as long as it's newer than 10 years old, they'll still go 10, 15, maybe even 20 years if you're over 100,000. They're going to look for at least 10% down, but maybe 20%. And that will be determined by the lender on that particular boat, based on the research that they do, NADA guides, They may look at something called sold boats, which dealers report to, kind of like the MLS of boats. Hey, this is what the last two of those type of boats have sold for. Because once you start getting into used boats, there's only a handful of them sold of that year, make, and model per year.
Right.
So they'll do some research and say, okay, we're going to say this boat is worth this much, and we're going to say you have to put down this much because of that. So it's not as cut and dried, but usually 10 to 20% in that range.
Okay. All right. The next question. Talking about a pre-owned boat again.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on Sea Ray as far as pre-owned, and do they hold? I know that they're a great line of boats.
Yeah.
I love them. But I mean, do they hold the value pretty decently, and do they hold up? Period.
Yeah. So I sold Sea Rays for 5 years. I've sold a lot of cruisers, and I've had a lot of clients buy pre-owned Sea Rays, deck boats, cruisers, runabouts, whatever, up to a 38-footer all the way down to a 17-footer. And yeah, you can't go wrong buying a used Sea Ray if you get those other things checked out, assuming it's been taken care of.
Assuming it's been taken care of.
Yeah, assuming it's been maintained properly, you're going to be very, very happy with the Sea Ray cruiser.
Okay.
Yeah, it's especially in the year ranges that you're looking at, because I was selling those new when they were coming out, and yeah, you're going to be very satisfied. The other thing I like about used boats is, if it was going to break, it's going to have broken by the time you step aboard.
Yeah.
So if it's 3 years old,
worked out.
Yeah. So even a different brand, if it's and I think Regal's does a good job. Bayliner's on the cheaper end. That's how they build themselves. But if you board that boat and it's 3 years old or older, if it was going to break. If it was going to break because it was cheaply made, it's probably already broken or starting to show signs that it's on its way. And that's kind of a nice thing about a used one, is you can see how's it going to hold up.
Right.
So.
Okay. What as far as hours on the engine and generator? At what point would you shy away?
Okay, so not too much, but not too little. So I don't want a 5-year-old boat that has 10 hours on it, because it's been sitting. Unless it was put away the right way, and they knew this boat's going to sit for a couple of years. But on the too much side, here's the guide that I used. 1,000 to 1,500 hours is what those Mercruisers is what Sea Ray has, but Volvos are about the same. 1,000 to 1,500 hours is kind of the useful life of a stern drive.
Okay.
That's based on my experience. That's not scientific research, but it's you start to get into the 700, 800, 900 hours, you're going to have some repairs coming up, and you're about ready to replace an engine. And I'm not sure down there, but in our area in the Carolinas, 50 hours a year was about average of somebody that really did use the boat, not just used it once a week or once a year. But if you were a boater, 50 hours a year is about average. So if I'm looking at a 5-year-old boat and it's got 250 hours on it or so, that's good. I'm good with that. If it's got 500 hours on it, they used it a bunch, but it still has, you still have, a good 200, 300 hours in before you start seeing, some bigger repairs coming up. Prefaced all with, did they take care of it, which will come out with the survey and the mechanical inspection. Now, I just forgot what I was going to say. It was going to be really good too, I'm sure. But no, that's kind of what I would look for. 50 hours a year, do the math, and then the closer you start getting to that 1,000 number, the more I start kind of steering away from it. The generator will probably have, depending on how they used it, a lot more hours on it than the engines. Yeah, if you're overnight, and you may run the generator most of the day and night. And again, it's a matter of how they maintained it. But I really don't know what a useful life of a generator is. I very seldom saw them get replaced because they were overused. So I don't really know what it's 500 hours on the generator. That's too many. That's something I probably need to research a little bit.
Okay. All right. Now, in the cabin itself,
yep.
What are things that you would look for? You go into the cabin of a cruiser. What are items that you would look for that would be important to you to see, not just cosmetically, but the functionality also?
Yep.
For that purpose.
The first thing I would look for is any signs of water. It was water leaking through a hatch. Was water leaking through a seam where the deck and the cockpit get the kind of shoebox fitting is what they call it. So can you see any water damage in the headliner, on any of the upholstery? And maybe they left the hatch open one time, which happens. But I would want a reasonable explanation, and then I would take a hose and I would spray water in that spot and see what happens. That would be number one. Number two is for layout. The interior of most cruisers are highly adjustable, because you've got your dining room, your dinette set up, you've got your sleeping set up, and you may have another adjustment that you can make. So I would go through the boat and I would set up the sleeping arrangements and say, does this sleep the way we would use it? I'm 6'2", so I would lay in a cruiser, and some of them I had plenty of room to put my feet out. My wife's almost 6 foot. So, could the two of us lay here together and truly get a night's sleep and be happy the next morning, or does it not work? Then I would pull that up, stow everything away, put up the dinette table, make the other adjustments, and say, okay, now it's daytime and it's raining out and we're coming downstairs to have lunch. How does that work? Can we slide in and get to the table? And no, it's not going to be like you're in your house, but is it comfortable for the way that you would use it, knowing that you're spending the weekend on the water and that's the main part of it. Is it comfortable enough for that and functional?
Right.
The galley, most galleys are, the setup is good. Do you have a microwave? That's probably what you'll use the most. You'll have your refrigerator, but you also probably have your cooler up top, or maybe a second refrigerator up top in the cockpit. And then the head. It's not going to be like showering at your house. Is it doable? Is it the head is one that, to me, hey, you're on the water. If you can rinse off some of the nastiness, you're good. maybe there's a freshwater spray on the swim platform, and that's where you get a shower most of the time.
Right. The shower's the least thing
exactly.
Think about.
Exactly. So we used to go vacation at the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri when I was a kid, and us kids would always have a contest to see who showered the latest in the week. I didn't shower till Friday. I can tell. Yeah, exactly. So those are three of the big things I would look for in the cockpit, and then the last thing I would do is I would pull up in the floors. I would pull up all of the compartments in there, see what kind of storage you have, because if you're, especially the longer trips you think you'll be taking, where am I going to store everything? Knowing that you're going to have to pack light in the 26-footer. If you move up to, let's say a 34-footer, then you've got a lot more room because it's a lot wider. Right. But what storage do you have? And then also there should be a compartment near the head that's got a bilge pump in there. And maybe depending on the boat, it may have two. Sometimes they'll be in the step down from the cockpit into the cabin. Check those bilge pumps. Make sure, one, that they're operational, which the surveyor will do for sure, but you can lift up the switch and the float switch and see if it goes. And just check out to see, is there any water standing in there? Is there anything that looks off? Does it look like it's never, ever been cleaned? That'll kind of tell you about how they maintained, the details of the boat.
Right.
And that's a little thing that, even if they prepped that boat and they buffed out all the scratches and they hit all the things that are wrong with it, that's one that they probably didn't think about, and you can quickly and easily check into that. And then run the heating and air conditioning. Some 26-footers may have it, some won't. 28s probably will, and up probably will. But just run that AC and see, see how it runs.
Yeah,
it's got to be in the water to do that. But
that's one of my requirements, personal requirements. It's got to have a generator.
Yep.
And it's got to have air conditioner and heating. If it wasn't for that, I'd probably buy one of the big pontoon boats.
Yeah. Right. Yep. That's key to the enjoyment of a cruiser, I think, especially where you are. Yeah. It was kind of on the cusp here. Like, you're probably going to be happier with it, but down there you definitely need that AC.
Right.
So
now, if talking about a used or a pre-owned boat, what would a 34-foot? No, and I know you can't really give me an answer, but a ballpark. What kind of price range for, say, something 5 years old, 7 years old? This would be, here's the most recent data point I have for you. In 2000, when did I stop selling? 2013 or 2014 is when I stopped selling, and I sold a 05 340 Sundancer, V drives, super good condition, freshwater boat. I'll make a quick note while I just said that. I would stay away from saltwater boats. They'll be 10 to 15. That goes without saying. Okay, good. That goes without saying. I'm
10 to 50% cheaper, but you're going to hate yourself after the first month, unless it's
I won't even look at one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. So freshwater, and I think that one sold for. We listed at maybe 100. It sold for in the high 90s, maybe. And so that was a 10-year-old boat that was about 100, a 34 that was all decked out. If that's a reference point. But here's what you can do. If you go to nadaguides.com.
So I had a recording now.
Yeah, well, I'll send you this. I'll ask one more favor of you, because as we're going through this, I'm like, these are questions that almost everybody's going to ask. So if you wouldn't mind if I just offered this recording for free to people, and said, hey, if you're buying a cruiser, listen to this conversation we had. You'll probably find something that's valuable. Okay, cool. nadaguides.com. And there you can go to boats, you can go to manufacturer, year, select the make and model, select some of the options, and it'll give you what's called an average retail price.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that average retail price means it's an average boat, which means that it's got some things that aren't perfect about it. Typically, if it's a boat that I would want to buy, that I'm going to be like, I did all this inspection and I know it's good, I would pay 10 to 15% more than that average retail price.
Okay.
And if I saw a boat that was listed at that average retail price, I would really ask a lot of questions. Now, maybe it's, hey, we just got to sell it. There's a financial issue. Yeah. We don't need the money. Maybe there's a reason, but I would have my antenna up for a flaw that was going to catch me. So. But that's a good place to start.
Somebody had a murder in the cabin.
Yeah. It's like, we stuffed the body in the engine compartment. Don't look in there. Whatever it is, I would be willing to pay typically 10 to 15% more than that average retail price, because I know it's going to be worth it in the long run. And then they also include saltwater boats in that average number, so that's going to drag it down a little bit too.
Right. Okay. Okay. One other question. What are your thoughts on single engine or twin drive?
Depends.
Doesn't matter.
Depends on what you're going to do with it, how you're going to use it, where you're going to go. A 26-footer, you're fine with a single.
I'm thinking, to be honest with you, Matt, I'm thinking 28 foot, possibly 30 foot.
Then you're definitely, I say definitely, the more difficult your conditions are that you're going to be docking in and maneuvering in, the more I go to twins. It's so much easier when you get up to 28, 30 feet to maneuver in close quarters with those twin engines. You can do it. I mean, you'll get comfortable with your boat no matter what it is. Mm-hmm. But if you've got wind, if you've got tides, if you've got currents, if you've got anything like that, the more I lean to twin engines.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because I've seen a lot of them. God, I can't say how many boats I've looked at on YouTube. You know, and you know, looking at single engine versus twin engine and the bow thrusters and all that. So, and speaking about thrusters, what do you think about them? How do you like them as far as maneuverability around the docks and stuff?
I love them. Yeah, I love them on the bigger boats. Totally unnecessary. When you start getting to 34, 36, 40, then you know, 34 is a maybe. 36, 38, 40, then probably. But
28, 30, just a
I think if you're under 34 and you're on a freshwater lake and you don't have major currents or wind, then you don't need it. If you're in the if you're at the coast and you've got tides and you've got wind and you've got currents to deal with, then I would probably want one. Okay.
All right. That's good to know. Okay. I think I had one other question. That came out. Yeah, what it was. Oh well. Yeah. I think that's all I got.
Okay. Well, was this helpful for you?
You've been a wealth of information. No, you have been a wealth of information. Now, I know that, like I said, I wish I had recorded this conversation as well to record all your answers.
I'll email you. I won't use your full name or anything on this recording because I'm going to let it go. But I've got your emails that you sent me. And, you know, this project has been on my to-do list for about a year. And now that we've done this, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to offer free consultations on like Facebook ads or something, and get somebody that wants a pontoon, somebody that wants a bow rider, somebody that wants a deck boat, somebody that wants a whatever, and just have this conversation, because I think once you realize that I was just giving straight up answers, that you're like, okay, I really can trust this guy and I really can ask some questions. So
and those are questions that you generally can't or probably shouldn't ask the salesman trying to sell your boat. Yeah.
I will say that most boat salespeople are pretty honest and upfront. And I would, I do encourage you to go to your local dealer, and maybe even a brokerage place. And, you don't need to tell them exactly everything you told me, but, just kind of feel them out. And if they ask you questions similar to the ones that we talked about today, how you're going to use the boat, where you're going to be keeping it, then you've got somebody that's pretty good. If they just go into selling mode and say, listen here, you got to buy this because it's the only one I've got, and it's got this and it's got that, and they start, do you need a survey? And they say, no, you don't need a survey. That's a waste of money. Then, you got somebody that you don't want to trust. But they oftentimes can be helpful because they'll know more about the local boating conditions. And on some of the recommendations, like I said, if you have wind and current, the twins would be better. Sometimes there's other options that they can say, hey, down here, you really need to have X, Y, Z, because you'll appreciate it. So, but yeah, I will email you. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I live in northwest Louisiana, and there are no boat dealers around. There's a Bayou Outdoor, but they don't deal in any kind of large boats. So I've got to go out of my area to even think about buying a boat.
Sure.
can you negotiate the delivery into the price of the boat?
Yeah, you can do that if you're working with the dealer. Around here, it's about $2 to $3 a loaded mile. So that's the one-way trip from where it is to where you are. And then depending on the size of, if it's a 26-footer that they just back it down and you're off and running, kind of like you are with your Cuddy right now, they may not have a delivery fee. If you start getting into the 30, 34, and they've got to get permits and there might be some other fees on top of it. If the dealer owns the boat, where it's a boat that they took in on trade and they actually own it, they're more likely to do it. If it's a boat that they're helping somebody else sell, a brokerage or consignment boat, then they're less likely to do it because it's kind of an accounting nightmare. Not that they won't, but they're just less likely to.
Right. Okay. How about say a 28-footer, Matt? I mean,
if it's
that's right on the edge, isn't it?
Yeah. And each state has their own transport laws as far as as far as permitting goes going down the highway. But I would say on like a Sea Ray 280, which is actually a 31-foot boat, a 280 Sundancer, they're going to charge an extra fee for loading and delivery. Because it's a 2, if not a 3-man project, depending on what the landing looks like. Now, the dumping it in the water, if you're there and you're receiving the boat, and the ramp is reasonable, you'll be able to handle that with 2 people without much problem. But the loading it up can be a little bit more difficult because that's a big boat to put on a trailer and a big truck to pull it out, all that.
Right.
So, and make sure if you do transport, make sure you get somebody that's has some good reviews. That's not just some yahoo with a truck that says, sure, I can pull it. Because I had a guy that took a boat up to like New Jersey or New York, and he sent down he picked the guy and said, here, have him loaded up. We got it all loaded up. I helped kind of secure the boat, and we looked at the canvas, and I said, I think that needs to come down. Nope, we're fine. He gets up there, and my guy called me and said, the canvas was ripped. He's going to fix it, so just make sure you get somebody that's going to know how to prepare a boat for the road, especially if it's 100 miles or more.
Okay. All right.
So,
are you familiar with either Marine Max or Max Marine in Dallas?
Yeah, Marine Max.
Marine Max.
Marine Max is probably the largest dealer in the country. Well, they are the largest one. They have last number I heard was like 85 locations in the U.S. They're a public company, and they've got a good reputation as a firm. Now, when you get to the dealership level, each dealer, they've got their guidelines, but if you've got a couple of bad people, you just never know. But overall, they've got a good, solid reputation. Ask some of those questions that you ask me. If you ask, should I get a survey or do I need to get this inspected? And they say no. Then that one question right there on
that's
a cruiser,
right there.
Yeah. If it's a 18-foot runabout, I'm going to say, you know what? You don't need to get an inspection. It's 5 years old. We can do a sea trial. You don't need to. But if it's a cruiser, and they say you don't need to get it inspected, well, I'm going to be cautious with that person.
Okay.
So, and make sure you can do all the negotiation, and you can say, hey, if everything's good, I would offer $65,000 for that boat, and they say no, we got to have 75, and you do your negotiation deal. You can get the price locked in before you make the trip out there. And then you get out there and you say, well, you told me that everything was in perfect shape and the isinglass has rips in it. There's a water line in the engine compartment. I can tell it's been sunk at some point. That's a way to save yourself some time if they won't negotiate to the price you're willing to go to.
Right.
But yeah, you can definitely, work with them and ask those questions to see if you've got a good salesperson or a good dealer.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna drive over there tomorrow. That's kind of have a plan. Go over there and spend some time and kick the tires and sit in some boats.
Yep. That's a great way to do it. Is you can sort of gauge the used boats by looking at the new and see what's the difference between a leftover year-old boat, what that price is compared to a 3 or 4 year old used boat, and then make your decision of, do I care if there's a couple nicks and scratches, or do I want the full warranty and all that goes with that, and is it worth the extra investment? And for each person is going to answer that differently.
Sure.
So well, anyway, hey, I enjoyed this. This was actually, it's been a long time since I've had this type of conversation, being out of sales, but I really enjoyed it, and I hope you got some good value from it.
Oh, I got a ton of value out of it, and I do appreciate it. And if you could email me, especially that site you told me to go to. Yeah,
NADAguides.com on that. But
okay.
I will shoot this out to you once it uploads and it's in a format I can send. And if you got anything else, just shoot me an email or I usually have to schedule my calls because I'm pretty busy.
It's time to pull up the anchor and run this podcast back to the dock. We'll be back again with another helpful and fun episode. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, visit us at boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/guest, and I'll help offer insights into your boat research and shopping experience. We'd also appreciate it if you gave the podcast a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so we know how we're doing. It also helps others find us, which is a big help. You can also share with your boating friends and boating groups on social media. They'll certainly thank you. By the way, if you haven't already, be sure to grab your free Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon Toolkit with inspection checklists, questions to ask, calculators, how to sea trial a boat the right way, and much, much more. You can pick up your copy at boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/toolkit today. Already found the perfect boat and want to ensure you don't pay too much? Check out the magic money-saving method at boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/save for a short video. And now a few first-time boating tips for when you bought your new boat. Number 1, at the boat ramp, prepare your boat, your gear, your guests in the staging area. Then head back down the ramp, unload, and head to the parking lot. Be courteous to your fellow boaters, and don't tie that ramp up unnecessarily with things that should be done in the staging area. It'll make you a lot more boating friends. Number 2, this could save you an expensive ticket, and it's a personal pet peeve of mine. Boats do not have headlights. They have docking lights. They're specifically made for seeing in tight quarters and docking. Please, 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 please do not run your docking lights while running down the lake or the waterway. It will cause other boaters night blindness, and it can be very dangerous, and it's incredibly rude to those other boaters. Plus, as I said, it can land you with a very, very expensive ticket. Number 3, pay attention to your wake at all times. When maneuvering at slow speeds, you can put out an enormous wake. Be sure to be at idle speed, which is just in forward gear, to ensure there's no wake, no extra throttle. Again, this can save you a very expensive ticket, and it's courteous to your fellow boaters. Number 4, follow the maintenance schedule for your boat, changing the oil, the impeller, the gear loop, winterizing before the first major freeze if you freeze in your area, and checking your tires and your hubs and keeping those bearings greased. It will help you ensure that you don't experience an expensive and an unnecessary repair. Keeping up with that general maintenance will ensure that you have a much more fun and enjoyable boating lifestyle and have fewer problems that arise. Number 5, always double check your plug is in, that your battery is charged, and the fuel is full before heading out for a day on the water. Now, I know all of these from personal experience, and it's ruined the boating day every single time. So double check those things before you head out on the water, before you back down that ramp and go, and you'll have much more fun. And most important, have fun. Get out and enjoy your boat as often as you can, because as you know, life truly is better on a boat. Until next time, this is your friend in boating, Captain Matt.